Hi, everybody. I'm Andy MacWilliams, the new host of Ask the Athletic Director. We also have a new athletic director, ironically, here at Xavier, Greg Christopher. And Greg, it's great to be with you. We look forward to these monthly chats, and it should be fun.
Should be. Welcome to you, also in your role. Know your history, know the background. Thrilled to have you here and look forward to answering questions.
My title, I guess, if there is one, is Xavier Insider. So we'll define that as we go along, but we'll have a lot of fun with it one way or the other. Right off the bat, the Johnny Manziel situation has created a lot of press almost in every form of media. The quarterback for Texas A&M, the Heisman Trophy winner, got himself into a little hot water with autographs and that type of thing during the off season. Does that ever crop up in Xavier's context, and what systems do you have to have in place? What are the rules?
Good question, and it is something that we've talked about internally, specific to Manziel, and we don't have what I would say are policies, but it is something that we guard against. The overarching policy, obviously, is the NCAA's, what I would say, guardrails as it relates to what student athletes can do with autographs, and we certainly follow those. But we don't have any checks and balances very specific to the point of some schools have gone all the way of not allowing their student athletes to sign autographs. But I will say that based on our conversations, it's pretty clear that our staff does a good job of guarding against what I would call things that look outside the norm of our student athletes signing an autograph after a game. Again, you never want to say never on what could be in the future if a player blows up and we're getting tons of publicity and autograph hounds. But based on what I'm hearing, I think our staff does a good job of guarding against the Manziel type situation.
You know, Xavier basketball tickets have always been at a premium, difficult to access over the years. But with the Big East, the advent of the Big East, I would think things may get even tighter. And a lot of schools have policies where fans can build up points and increase their access to tickets. What's Xavier's status in that? What are you planning?
As I walked in the door, there was discussion of a priority point system. We don't have one, and we're probably in the minority of institutions like Xavier or BCS type institutions that don't have a priority point system. So the short answer is yes, we are going to be instituting a priority point system. The longer answer is I can't tell you exactly when it would be. It might be a year from now, might be 2 years, might be a little bit longer. But what a point system does, probably the biggest reason you have one is to take the subjectivity out of any ticket allocation, whether that's postseason or upgrades. So if for no other reason than that, that's why I would like to have a priority point system. But we've got to get it right. And I'm not saying the system that was being worked along or baked wasn't right. But I asked the staff to pull back for a second, and we're going to think it through this year, get feedback from our fans, and whether it's a year from now, 2 years from now, or later, eventually we'll need some sort of system for, again, a more objective allocation of our ticketing.
Xavier basketball has been playing the Dayton Flyers for, well, consecutively, I believe. I checked the record since right after World War II, way back 1945, 1946. The non-conference schedule is out officially, and the Dayton Flyers are not on it. We all know they're in the Atlantic 10. Xavier is in the Big East starting this year. What is the story there, and what is the future of the Dayton-Xavier rivalry, or is that too much of a crystal ball situation?
Yeah, the future there, I'm going to talk out of both sides of my mouth a little bit here. On one hand, the rivalries like Xavier UC, Xavier Dayton, that's what makes college athletics so great, and the passion and energy that comes from that. The other side is obviously we've got to do what's best for Xavier. So you've got to try to balance those two. Here's the reality. The first part is that our schedule's set this year and next year as far as it comes to non-conference. So I can tell you, I can tell fans, and I've been telling fans, we're not going to be playing Dayton either this season or next season, just simply because the non-conference schedule grid is already in place. Past that, tough to tell. You've got the Big East part that's playing out. And then obviously we would like to talk to Dayton, because I'd be disappointed personally if that was a game that went away long term. But when we get them back, I think there are some balls in the air, so to speak.
The Big East is at 10 teams for this inaugural season, but that number is certainly not set in stone. In fact, from what you've told me, there is expansion in the wind, and Dayton may be part of that equation. What do the numbers look like? What's the time frame, and who might fit in as teams 11, 12 down the line?
Good segue from the Dayton conversation to the Big East expansion. I think that the Big East will expand. If you look at what's on paper and what's expected and so forth, from 10 to 12, I'm not sure it's actually codified in stone, but it does appear that things are headed that way. The timing is the issue, and then the other issue would be, which two schools get added to the mix. The timing part, I don't know that it's next year, but it's probably sometime in the next 5 years. That would be the time window that I would say. That would be one part. The 4 schools, the only thing I can tell you as someone new walking in the door was exactly what's been in the media. So I don't think I'm telling anyone that anyone who follows this doesn't already know. And it's St. Louis, Dayton, Richmond, and VCU are the 4 schools that always get mentioned. The last part I'll say is that this decision is going to be made at the president's level, frankly, and that's what it should be. So, whether that's a year from now or 2 years from now, 3 years from now, I think it will be on the president's agenda, and it'll be something they talk through. And, we could have an entire 2-hour show here talking about the merits of those 4 schools, but we'll leave that for some other time.
Greg, I know you've been doing a lot of homework. You've been meeting a lot of Xavier people, and that has taken up a lot of your time since you officially became athletic director. But right now we're into the fall season. There are teams on the field wearing Xavier blue and white, and give us a quick overview of how they're doing, what they're doing.
Great point. It's been a whirlwind summer. It's been fun to get to know and meet so many Xavier fans, but it's also fun now that school's in session to see campus alive. And we do have our fall sports playing. Cross country is the last one to get started here at the end of this week. But volleyball and both soccer teams are off and running. Volleyball had a nice weekend this past weekend, hosting their own tournament, coming out of that 2-1. Women's soccer, you probably saw, had a great tournament last weekend. They upset over Purdue. Men's soccer had a little bit of a hiccup their first weekend, but Andy's done a great job for us, and I'm sure he'll have the guys ready once they get started here in the next week or so.
I'm a slave to men's basketball. It's always been a love of mine for the last 30 years. And it's interesting that October 15th is no longer a cast-in-stone start date for Division I men's basketball and the everyday practice regime. Actually, things are going to start earlier in late September. Chris Mack will be allowed to do a full practice week, which is interesting.
They've already started workouts and full practices. You're right. Both basketballs have gone to a system that a lot of the other sports follow, in the sense that you're allowed X number of practices over Y number of days. A system that basically allows coaches flexibility to schedule practices, all based off of when your opening date is. So the calendar is ever changing, and Midnight Madness isn't even Midnight Madness anymore as it relates to Fox and some of the plans there. So the only thing that stays the same is change, so to speak, but basketball season's coming.
I think the demise of Midnight Madness, certainly Dickie V would not smile on that. That was a big deal for him. But and I don't have it written down, but I think opening night is November 8th against Gardner-Webb.
I believe, and then the Midnight Madness that I spoke of is actually now a Fox show, and I believe that's October 25th. If I may have my dates mixed up there, but that'll be a nationally televised show on Fox Sports 1, which will be great exposure for the Big East.
Greg, we enjoy getting with you. We look forward to it on a monthly basis. And in early October, Chris Mack will have the team on the floor for a week or more, and maybe we can do some updates in that area, as long as the NCAA allows it or whatever. But we look forward to a good time.
Thanks, Andy.